Welcome, and thank you for joining us today for another edition of the Leadership Cafe, where we talk to extraordinary people leading remarkable businesses. We're your host. I'm Richard Citron.
And I'm Michael Couch, and as always, we like to make sure we recognize VACO, who is the sponsor of the Leadership Cafe. VACO is a global talent solutions business that is. We're pleased for their support, and you ought to check out all the great things that they do, and the other information on leadership and talent at their website, vaco.com. We really appreciate their support of the cafe. Today's special guest is a longtime colleague, Dan Denison, who is the founder and chairman of Denison Consulting. And even though he's a Michigan fan, we're glad to have him. We're glad to have him on the show today. Welcome, Dan.
It's great to be here. Thanks, Michael. Thanks, Richard. Good to have a chance to chat and to contribute to your Leadership Cafe.
Thanks. Yeah, so why don't you start off by telling folks about your career, your leadership journey, in a sense. So they have some exciting and different things on your resume, and then we'll talk more about Denison Consulting and some of the cultural research that you guys have gotten into.
Well, I'll save you the whole, life story here that builds a leader, because that's what it is. We sort of are, what we are based on our experiences, and that's really important to try to understand and to build on. But, in thinking about your questions, just made me aware of how fairly early in my career, I was in the middle of some pretty disruptive events. And, one of them was I was in the University of Michigan Institute for Social Research when I first started out. And the center I was in was, famous place, but that doesn't keep you going, for the future. And the particular center I was in was just like falling apart. There weren't really any leaders there. And I was kind of a young pup, and you're sort of looking around and saying, I don't know. But far enough along in my career that you're very invested in having it be a success and not quite ready to leave. But, you learn to kind of read the signs of the situation and the context you're in and say, wow, where's my stable base in this? And, eventually that was great, because that, after, going out and interviewing for new jobs, different places around the world, ended up just moving across town to the University of Michigan Business School. And so that's where I kind of started the career. And, several other disruptions, I often, joke and tell a story about our office in Ann Arbor, Michigan, and how I signed the lease on that office the Friday before September 11th, and then got back on the plane to go back to IMD, IMD Business Schools in Lausanne, Switzerland, and I spent over 15 years on the faculty there doing executive programs, and then got back there and Tuesday afternoon just watched the World Trade Center crumble over and over again on TV, which was also my 50th birthday.
Wow.
That week, and had just signed a lease for I remember it well, $180,000 over 3 years. Not exactly pocket change, where you say, well, gee, what happens if this doesn't work? And then again, for us in 2009 was another time when things are just shifting left, right, and center. And, you do learn that when your back's against the wall, choices that you make as an individual, but I think more importantly as a team, nothing focuses your attention like having your back against the wall. And you can say, oh, God, I really don't like this. And yeah, that makes sense. But so what? It's how you react to this, how you kind of embrace this big fuzzy ball of chaos that just landed in your lap, and you try to see what are some of the things here that I can see a future in this, and I want to make it happen. And
Yeah.
just about a year ago, as we were saying, no, we were in a team meeting, we were in a town hall meeting, and I kind of just blurted out, should we really be here? And then we had a good chat and decided, no, we shouldn't be here. And so then it's like, okay, well, what's it going to take to successfully run a consulting firm through this transition? And you go, wow, you know what? We can't go to the airport anymore. I mean, no, like, executive offsite meetings, no face-to-face coaching. And so it's like, well, how do we reinvent everything we do, start to finish, so that it all works fine online? And we had several clients that said, yeah, this is good. We need this. We appreciate that you're taking this approach to it, and let's go and let's learn and let's see what happens and what can we make out of it. So I don't want you to get the feeling from this little autobiography that I'm kind of an accident looking for a place to happen. But it has really shaped my thinking, and made me aware that I'm curious about complexity.
Yes.
I'm like, upheaval makes me pay real close attention and think a lot and realize that strategy is all about choice.
Yep.
And so there's a lot of choices out here that I don't like, but which ones are we going to take? Because that's what it comes down to.
Yeah, we just talked with a very enlightening CEO who's gotten to the point because of what she's learned, and she brought up 9/11 too, because their office building was close to 9/11, and they lost 11 members. But she said they do actually do hackathon kind of things where they put themselves in difficult problems, where they really want it to be a problem or an issue they never addressed before, or look for places that they can really do some scaling like they never did before. So intriguing, you had to, people recognizing that if you do this in a right, safe way, there can be also tons of innovation from it as well. So.
Oh yeah, necessity's the mother of invention, as Frank Zappa. No, Frank Zappa didn't say that. He sort of ran from the mothers of invention, but absolutely.
Yeah.
And you can get, and I do notice that. There's some development and there's some self-awareness, and that, what's the coffee cup stay calm and carry on.
Right.
Good advice, because, if you need to, lose your mind in frustration, do it by yourself. There's, get on the bike, or go for a long walk, work it out, and sort of deal with yourself as a physical entity that occasionally has some ideas pop out from between their ears, and then realize that, boy, one of the biggest obligations you got going is to come back and be supportive, be a source of security as much as you can, but especially when there's not a lot of security to be had. Present yourself as someone who's thinking it through, coping with it, wants to win with the team.
Great.
And I always try to be very empathetic with, everybody else's anxiety, but not, not to kind of telecast too much of my own, even though my need for a good friend at work or someplace else, or a colleague where you can kind of be cathartic and say, oh my God, what am I going to do now? That's fundamental.
Yeah, you need that community. Yeah.
It builds a lot of energy. It builds a lot of sense of what you can can do, but that's not always what the members of your team need.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Dan, tell us a bit about Denison Consulting. I mean, you have, the premier cultural survey and consulting organization in the world around these themes. Can you talk a little bit about culture and how culture plays a role in all this, and how culture plays? You mentioned a little offhandedly there, I think, about coaching. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Sure. The work, the core of the firm, actually came out of the research that we did on how the culture of an organization influences the performance of the business. Back in the day when I was growing up and, studying and getting the PhD and all that, there wasn't really much of any evidence that said, yeah, with these characteristics, you're likely to grow, or with these, you're likely to, be better quality, or you're, provide more for your people, more to your customers. And, that it came out of that research that I did because I was kind of shocked. I thought I was going to go to these classes and learn, how this all worked. And I said, yeah, not clear it does. Well, what are we here? And so that kind of gave me a juice, with a lot of help from all the work that had been done at the Institute for Social Research, for sure. But saying, hey, I could do better at this. And out of that, connected with a guy named Bill Neal, that had a background in several companies that did training and leadership development products and surveys, and so we kind of talked each other into doing a commercial version of some of the research work. And I often, people say, well, why did you write this survey? And my answer, kind of tongue in cheek, was, so I stopped writing so damn many surveys. Because I did a lot of projects that were kind of data-based organizational change, and should we ask this question or that one? And it's like, and hey, let's just try and get this right. And with a really lucky confluence of 3 or 4 things, we got it right. We designed it, in a lot of ways, pretty similar to what it's like now. A lot of things we've added around, a lot of depth, a lot of research, a lot of things about how do you use the tool to change organizations. But, we did that, brought it to market. For the first few years, that was offered by another training company. And that got us off the ground. But after, they didn't really believe that it could ever be successful as a business. And they thought that, they should stop, paying us, because of that. And we kind of didn't think that was such a good, there's another disruption.
Right.
We kind of said, that doesn't sound so good to me. And so then we established our own firm in 1998 to manage that, and have been, going strong ever since.
Wow.
Yeah, so we've heard very consistently from the 40 or 50 C-suite executives and entrepreneurs that we've talked to that culture makes a difference, from their, just from their perspective or their feeling. But then they also said, several have said, if we didn't have the culture we had, we would have never been able to handle 2020.
You bet.
Are you seeing the same kind of thing, from the data and from the analytical work you've been doing?
Yeah, Michael. One of the other reactions, as you guys well know, to what was going on a year ago, was what can we do? How can we contribute to this? Because I said, well, if we're doing something that's supportive to the people that have been our clients, somehow we're going to be making a mark that will count. And so we did 40 or 50 pro bono projects with clients and other organizations that we hadn't even really worked with, and figured, well, if we do this right, we do this well, something good is going to come about it. And not too much more evidence than that,
Yeah. Yep.
but a lot of conviction. And, so the interesting thing we found after we'd done a bunch of these projects, we started looking at, well, what's the link between the resilience that the organization had to the pandemic and the culture that they had before the pandemic. And, we didn't have a huge amount of data, but it was real clear that the organizations that had a strong culture could do much more and could have much more impact from that than the ones that didn't. Overall, we were really impressed because the responses were really positive, especially with the things that you could do from the top. You could do kind of unilaterally to make sure people were safe, secure, had good access, and we're starting to figure out a way to work together. The harder part is, how do we listen so we understand what's going on with everybody so that we plan the next stage. But, we saw that the organizations that didn't have very strong cultures to begin with, didn't get very far beyond that kind of top down. Here's how we're going to work. Here's how we're going to support you. Let us know. But on the other side, we had organizations where the strength of their culture, what they said is, this crisis just revealed the strengths that we had. Maybe it even made us much more conscious of how important those were. And the collaboration that we've had with you guys with Sheets is a terrific example of this, because they started talking about the culture bank, and Stephanie D'Oliveira was on a panel with me with a kind of Silicon Valley group, the C-Sharp, the Consortium of Strategic Human Resource Professionals, and she said, we started thinking about the culture bank that we've created, the investments that we've made in the people and the organization, and that's a source of resilience. It's something that we can rely on. Now, it wasn't like they, just started taking withdrawals out of that bank.
Right.
Sheets, as you well know, at the beginning of this pandemic, with people that were on the front line in their stores, they gave them all a pay raise.
Plus and that's a lot more support.
Yeah, and that's not exactly something you think of as a withdrawal from the culture bank. They're still contributing, but what a great resource to build. And now they're both thinking about what's the next round of investment, and what are all the ways in which we could build on this goodwill, but also understanding and interdependence, where they really do see their capacity to work together as being the core of what keeps the organization going. Yes. So lots of great examples like that, and in general, it's been one of the craziest times ever, and I've lived through several crazy times, but this one definitely takes the cake. But you see so many things that people as individuals and as organizations are doing to rise to the challenge.
Right.
It's very, very inspirational. And you guys early on saying, no, stop talking about bouncing back. Start talking about bouncing forward. We know we're bouncing, but where we're going is what's most, deserving of our attention.
Yes. Yeah, I think that's when Richard and I have compared notes about our experience on the Leadership Cafe and have written about it, I would say it's been inspirational as well.
Very inspirational.
Very enlightening to see what organizations and leaders have done and the innovation that came out of it. That's the sort of a common theme that we keep touching on here in the cafe, and that's very always come out of these feeling much better and much more informed as a result.
Well, I think one of the things that you've been talking about, a piece of wisdom that you've been sharing with us today, Dan, which is great, and we've heard from other people recently in our discussions, has been around this impact of disruption. And it's interesting because when we did the cafes earlier, when people were in the middle of the pandemic, and maybe back in August or September, I wasn't hearing disruption as being such a gift, if you will.
Then we thought we had a choice.
Yeah, the intensity of it was a bit
You bet.
more direct and kind of in our face. And it's interesting because, I've written about, we both have written about this idea of what's the post-pandemic life about. Right. And one of the things that is important is around this role of reflection. And it sounds like, whether for you it's been 9/11 and sinking 180 grand into a office space, or 2009 and that disruption, or now this disruption, which you may think of as the mother of all disruptions. I think it's interesting. It's interesting how the learning has occurred and the time for reflection and seeing, again, maybe the growth opportunity that comes out of it.
Yeah, absolutely. And, we're now, I think, facing even a bigger challenge, which is kind of like, well, what does a hybrid organization look like? Mm-hmm. Yeah, face-to-face is good stuff. There's no question. But holy cow, we've learned how to get a hell of a lot done.
Yeah.
Through video cameras, and far more than anybody would have ever anticipated. And early on, I'd ask, well, how much progress have you made, in the last 2 or 3 months in terms of working in a virtual world? And most people say, well, at least 2 or 3 years, maybe more like 5 to 10, because we did change our mindset. In our global forum this year that you guys are a part of, is on building a high performance business culture in a virtual world, in a digital world. And the question I like to ask executives and leaders in organizations is, well, we went from a stage where everybody was kind of working on site, and if you wanted to know what was going on, you walked down the hall and you saw, the team working, or at least you thought they were working, and that's good enough for today. Then we went to a stage where it's like, nobody's in the office. We're in a time where the next stage is kind of prioritizing and designing when do people need to interact face-to-face, and what's most important to have happen face-to-face, and what's actually working as well or better. I mean, I love it that you can do meetings all over the world all day long, every day. Sometimes it gets a little tiring, but the potential is huge. And that is an enormous gift to us because it's pushed us into the future. But I believe that some of the organizations that are going to do the best are the ones that kind of max out this hybrid model for the next stage. Because organizations like Sheetz, where in the corporate headquarters, everybody's working remotely, but you can't do that in a store. Domino's is another organization we're working with a lot right now. Exactly the same thing. And how do you start to bridge those two worlds and design where's the interdependence where face-to-face is really valuable, and where are the things that we're doing well in digital mode? And so let's keep it that way and keep the build on.
Yeah, one of our CEOs said, so we really learned the digital mode, but now we have to go back and improve the analog mode.
That's right.
I thought that was Great
Yeah.
analogy. Yeah.
Yep.
Well, Dan, it's been great having you as a guest here. Sorry about the little technical bump there, but it's been very enlightening, and always learn something when we interact, and look forward to continue to do that. As a thank you for being on the cafe, we'll send you a copy of a signed copy of
Right.
our book, The Strategy-Driven
Okay.
Leadership. Strategy-Driven
All right.
Leadership. Well, again, we also like to thank our sponsor, VACO, for helping us make the Leadership Cafe an important place where we can interact with thought leaders and executives like Dan Denison. You can be able to listen to this podcast when we release it on both Richard and I's website, but also on the VACO website, vaco.com. And of course, they'll be posted on LinkedIn, and you can access it with your favorite podcast app. So, well, we of course also want to always thank our producer director extraordinaire, Michelle Jarzowski, who's provides the support in the background for all the work we're doing here. So each of us at the Leadership Cafe, for all of us, we'd like to thank you for joining in.
It's my pleasure. Thanks, guys.
Yeah,
Good luck.
great
How's
having you.
forward?
Thank you so much. We look
Yeah.
forward
All
to catching up with you.
Yep, we'll talk soon.